Boys, it's chinned. ADESANYA and Pyfer is this weekend. This card is fucking great. The order's just all over the place. I feel like a lot of the best fights are on the prelims, but just all action pretty much throughout the entire card, with the exception of the women's fights. But the co-main is actually okay. It's not a dog shit women's fight. It's actually somewhat interesting because Macy Barber's been in some crazy fights recently. Yeah. Starting off with the first prelim, Alexia Tainara versus Bruna Brazil. Tainara's on a roll in the UFC. Bruna Brazil just hasn't looked good recently. Just very boring decision merchant. I'm just going to pick Tainara by decision. She probably takes her down and dominates her or holds her up against the fence and everybody boos. It's going to be a bad fight. The real card opener, Ricky Simone and Adrian Yanez. This is a fucking interesting matchup. Yanez obviously never really lived up to the hype that he had earlier in his UFC career. And then Simone's kind of he's an on and off fighter. You know, he wins some, he loses some. But the thing with Simone is all of his losses have aged pretty damn well. He had that Song Yadong main event loss. Then he lost to Mario Batista, Vinicius Oliveira, who went on to fight Batista in a headliner. Recently losing to Ione Barcelos, who's on a hell of a streak right now. Like, these are not bad losses. Adrian Yanez, on the other hand, he's losing to he had a bad loss. Daniel Marcos. That's just a bad loss. I think Ricky Simone is going to take him down and just steamroll him on the ground. Maybe Yanez will have his moments in the beginning of the rounds when he stood up, but I think Simone's going to have his way with the grappling. He's going to be able to take the back easily. Maybe gets a choke. Probably not, but maybe. I'm picking Ricky Simone by 29-28 decision. Maybe he loses the first round and then starts the grappling up in the second. Really starts getting dominant with the takedowns. But yeah, it's a fun matchup. I just think Simone is slightly better at this point in his career. Navajo Sterling and Bruno Lopez. This is just a layup for Sterling. Bruno Lopez is kind of a can. Like, he has some wins, but no meaningful ones. Navajo Sterling is also not the best, honestly. But, he's been winning in the UFC. I believe he's 3-0 or 2-0 or something with a win on the Contender Series. I think he's due for a KO. I'd say he TKOs Bruno Lopez. Just a nice counter right hook. Maybe steps back and avoids something and then drops a right hook right on Lopez's chin, puts him out, or sends him to the ground and finishes it with some follow-up shots. TKO round 2 for Navajo Sterling. Moving on to Casey O'Neill versus Gabby Fernandez. This is kind of an even fight, right? Gabby Fernandez actually is pretty decent. She had that big upset win over Wang Kong. Casey O'Neill had a lot of hype earlier in her career, and then she lost her undefeated record, and she's kind of just been mid ever since. I'm thinking I'm going to pick Gabby Fernandez by decision here. Yeah, I don't really know too much about either of them. I don't pay too much attention to their fights. I know I've watched their fights. I just can't be asked to, analyze the grappling exchanges of Casey O'Neill and Gabby Fernandez. I'm picking Gabby Fernandez by decision. Moving on. What a fucking surprise. Big Tyrell Fortune. Fucking ghost of Bellator over here. This guy had so many Bellator fights back in the day, and he's now making his debut against Marcin Tybura. A really good wrestler, Tyrell Fortune. I don't really rate him very highly. He didn't really wow me in Bellator. He was fighting cans, and I really didn't watch too much Bellator. He fought so much, you kind of you watch him every once in a while when you tune into a main card. Tybura, he's won some fights. He's more winning than losing recently, but his chin is always a factor, and he's not going to win if he can't take you down. Tyrell Fortune's going to use the grappling to keep the fight standing, and I think he's going to TKO Marcin Tybura on the feet. Probably early round 1. I see this being a pretty quick one. Fortune wants to make a statement in his debut, and Tybura's 40, man. He's getting old, fresh off of a bad KO loss against Ante Delaya, I believe. Just, it's a nasty matchup. But, should be exciting if it ends in the first round at least. Hopefully it's not some fucking boring heavyweight decision again, like that Mario Pinto fight. Oh god. Moving on to Chase Hooper and Lance Gibson Jr. Lance Gibson Jr. made his debut a couple months ago against Bobby Green on short notice and was just a fucking mannequin. He just stood there. He didn't do anything. And if he shows up and does the exact same thing, I think Chase Hooper is just going to fucking wreck him. I see Chase Hooper taking him down at will, taking the back, and just getting an easy choke. Maybe a late round 1, early round 2, Chase Hooper, rear naked choke. Lance Gibson hasn't shown anything in his UFC career. Hasn't really shown anything outside of his UFC career as of late that really makes me think that he can make a run, let alone against a guy like Chase Hooper, who, yes, got knocked out by Alexander Hernandez, but still has some of the higher level grappling in the division. I don't think Lance Gibson can do anything against that. I'm picking Chase Hooper by late round 1, early round 2, submission. Moving on, this is my favorite fight on the card here. Tafik Masayev versus Ignacio Bahamondes. I fucking love Tafik Masayev, and I love Ignacio as well, but I'm a massive Rizin glazer, and Tafik Masayev is one of the most exciting Rizin fighters I can remember over the last few years. He won the Rizin Lightweight Grand Prix over, was it Patricky Pitbull, was it? He was a devastating KO puncher. He's kind of lost his touch as of late. He got murdered by Oralbai in his debut. He just gets taken down and easily subbed by him. But that loss has not aged too poorly. Obviously, Oralbai is a fucking force on the ground. He would do that to most people outside of the rankings. I know that Tafik is on short notice, but I'm picking Tafik. And I know it would be a big upset. Ignacio is, like, to me, you know, he's a great striker, obviously, and he has crazy power. But he gets caught every once in a while, and sometimes he allows himself to get into a slugfest. I think Tafik in a war is hard to pick against. Obviously, he's way smaller, but I think that's going to play into his favor. Tafik likes to get in and really, like, close the distance and start winging hooks at you. I think he's going to catch Ignacio with a big one. Maybe put him down, win the rounds. You know, maybe there's some close pitter-patter rounds before or after that, but I feel like Tafik's going to have the moments in this fight. I feel like he's going to have the slight edge. I think the power is going to make him, make Ignacio a little bit more gun-shy. This is going to be a sick fight regardless, but I'm picking Tafik Masayev by decision here to get the upset. I know he's kind of getting old, but, you know, Ignacio leaves himself open to get hit, you know? Like, Fiziev was taking advantage of that. Fiziev was kind of beating the shit out of him. Albeit it was a little bit of a slower fight than Ignacio usually has. I think Tafik can do what Fiziev did, just at a more suffocating level. I'm picking Tafik by decision. Should be an insane fight, though. If you ask me, it'll probably be fight of the night, but I don't know. There's a lot of really good fights on this card, action-wise. Moving on to Kyle Nelson and Terrence McKinney. This is also, I mean, there's a lot of really, really fun fights on this card. I can't believe it. I really didn't know until I started looking at it a minute ago. This is a fun fight. Terrence McKinney, obviously, he'll never be anything crazy. But he's one of the more exciting guys in the UFC, one of the most must-watch guys, just based on first-round finish potential. It's all he does. It's all he knows. Kyle Nelson coming off of that really weird Matt Frevola win, where he got the TKO, but it got, like, stopped or something before 5 seconds of the round. It's some weird shit. Yeah, I'm going to be picking... This is a tough one. I really want to go with McKinney, but he just takes too much damage. And Nelson is... I know that he's been finished a few times in his career, but he's also kind of hard to finish at the same time. I don't think McKinney is capable of finding Nelson the way that other people have. I think he's a little bit too chaotic. I'm going to pick Kyle Nelson to weather the early storm and, you know, find a good punch while McKinney is blitzing him in the first 2 minutes of the fight. Maybe puts McKinney down, finds a sub, or just ground and pound TKOs him. I'm picking Kyle Nelson by round 1 TKO in the first minute or two. He catches McKinney lacking going in. Moving on to another great matchup. Yusri Bagaroui versus Mansour Abdulmalik. Yusri obviously just had that massive upset TKO win over Bakoyev, who I was really upset to see lose that fight. I'm a big Bakoyev fan. But he looked insane in it, Yusri. And Mansour Abdulmalik has been winning, but against cans. I believe his last fight was against Tricoli. He subbed him easily. Yeah. And then, right, he had that Cody Brundage shitter. This is a really close fight. And I know Yusri is riding some hype, but I feel like he really just had a perfect performance. I don't know if he'll be able to replicate it. I don't rate Mansour Abdulmalik crazy highly as a prospect, but I do think that he is, I think he has potential. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's being somewhat overlooked here. I'm picking Mansour Abdulmalik. I think he could wrestle him easily. I think he'd be able to take him down. I think he's a better grappler than Bakoyev, at least as far as his entries go and his double leg. I think he's a very powerful wrestler. I think he'll be able to take Yusri down at will. Maybe not early in the fight, but, maybe late in the first or early in the second, he can get a takedown and really start to control him. I'm going to pick Abdulmalik by submission, I think. I don't know. No, I'm going to pick Abdulmalik by decision. I'm just going to say that he is able to get some good takedowns, hold Yusri down, who doesn't really have the best grappling. Obviously, he used to be a kickboxer. I'm picking Abdulmalik by decision. It's going to be a boring fight, I think, but the matchup is really interesting. Moving on to Lyrian Douglas versus Julian Erosa. Another big underdog, Juicy J, who I actually think is going to win. Lyrian Douglas is kind of a jobber from the regionals before he won on the Contender Series against Cam Teague. And Cam Teague, I think, is one of the worst fighters to ever fight on the Contender Series. Just a really bad fighter. Really, really weird style, bad chin. Lyrian Douglas was able to run through him, and who doesn't? But Juicy J has all of the experience, and I know that he has had some really bad performances as of late. I consider his fight against Darren Elkins to be one of the slowest fights I've ever watched. Like, if you watch that, it looked like they were fighting underwater. Just a super weird fight to watch. He won it, but I do not rate that win at all. That was an ugly win for Erosa. But, then he came back and he had a really good competitive fight of the night, I believe it was, against Melky Costa, and that has aged well. I'm going to pick Juicy J for the upset. I say he takes him down or maybe hurts him on the feet and gets a good guillotine going and subs him in round 2. I watched him once in LFA get finished. He just, bad defense on the feet, bad grappling defense, bad submission defense. I think Juicy J, even though he's an aging fighter, is going to be able to take it to him and get the finish for the upset. Moving on to Michael Chiesa and Nico Price. Now this is a fucking bathroom break. Jesus. Michael Chiesa retiring. Thank the Lord. I'm going to be picking Michael Chiesa by round 1 submission. I don't think Nico Price is good. I don't think Michael Chiesa is good, but Nico Price on short notice. Nico Price is one of the worst fighters signed currently. He's just so washed. He used to be good, but now he's just the worst. I don't even know what to say about this fight. I'm picking Michael Chiesa. Takes him down in the first round. Nico Price is going to come in there very unprepared. Takes him down, and it's his retirement fight. He's going to want to end it on a win. Dana's going to give him a performance bonus for it if he does, because he glazes the shit out of him. Michael Chiesa, round 1 sub. Or TKO, I guess. But I'm picking this sub. Moving on, Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber. I know people are probably shitting on this fight. And I hate women's MMA too. Like, trust me. Go back and watch any of my other picks videos. I fucking, obviously, no, who likes women's MMA? I shouldn't even try and justify that. Like, obviously. But, this is a good fight. Assuming it stays standing, Grasso always brings it on the feet. Very exciting striker. Very good boxer, fundamentally. Macy Barber, one of the better brawlers you'll ever see in women's MMA. She had that fight a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, against Amanda Hebos. Maybe the best woman fight I've ever watched, other than the Weili and Joanna fight. I'm going to be picking Macy Barber here. I think she just brings it to her, clinches up, hits some nice clinch elbows, clinch knees, punches her up in the pocket, really pressures Grasso, who tends to do poorly under pressure, as we've seen in these Shevchenko fights. And I think Macy Barber just cuts her up and dominantly wins rounds on the feet and gets a decision win, 30-27. This has somewhat fight of the night potential if it weren't for the the stacked prelims here. Moving on to ADESANYA and Joe Pyfer. This card has some really close, interesting matchups, and this is no exception. Joe Pyfer and ADESANYA, man. I am picking ADESANYA confidently by decision. I know. Joe Pyfer, he's the hardest hitter in the 85 division. He's got good takedowns. He could pressure ADESANYA. I watched Joe Pyfer nearly 10-7 Kelvin Gastelum in the first round and proceed to stare at him and nearly lose the fight for the next two. He has some of the worst fight IQ I've ever seen. And he's done it multiple times too. It's not just in that fight. He did it against Jack Hermanson a couple of years ago. He froze up badly and he looked like shit. And he lost a decision to somebody who, whether you like it or not, he should have finished. If Joe Pyfer is the fighter that we all think he was, he should have finished Hermanson. And ever since he's been fighting cans, he got the TKO over Barrial. Powerbar is a very chinny fighter. Very, very chinny fighter. He got the submission over Abus. Abus is not great. He's not very defensively sound at all. And it brings me to my pick. Joe Pyfer fundamentally is a very weak fighter. He's no different from all of the big power-punching oafs that just walk forward at ADESANYA. The Yoel Romeros, the Paulo Costas, the Jared Cannoniers. They're not fundamentally the greatest fighters we've ever seen. They're just big power punchers. Joe Pyfer is a lesser version of those fighters, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you're picking Joe Pyfer here, you're picking Joe Pyfer because you think he can catch ADESANYA, not because you think he could dominate him from bell to bell. I think ADESANYA has a lot of experience against guys that fight exactly like Pyfer, that look for the big KO shot. And, you can point to his loss against Imavov and say, well, what happened there? Imavov fundamentally is the second best striker in the division right now, only behind Strickland. So it's like, I rate that loss very well because it is what it is, Imavov is a great fighter. It's no shame that ADESANYA lost him. I want to preface all of this, by the way. I hate ADESANYA, just like every single one of you guys probably watching this video. I hate this motherfucker. I've loved the Strickland fight was beautiful to me. The Dreykus fight was beautiful to me. I love to see ADESANYA lose, and I haven't rooted for this guy since before he won the title. I'm rooting for him again for this fight, though. I really do think that fundamentally he's going to show up. I don't care washed or not. He's still one of the best strikers in the history of the division. I think he's going to style on Joe Pyfer. Maybe Pyfer has a moment where he's able to take him down, maybe get a choke in or something. Kind of like the Marvin Vettori fight with ADESANYA, when Vettori took him down and was able to get the back and nearly choked him out. Maybe Pyfer has his moments on the ground. Maybe he drops ADESANYA. But I see the fight playing out relatively simply for an ADESANYA 48-47, 49-46 decision. Pyfer's going to go in the first round. He'll probably put his foot on the gas, and maybe he'll start winging shots at ADESANYA. I see ADESANYA being able to avoid all the power. Maybe eats some shots, eats them well. His chin's not completely gone, so maybe his chin holds up and he just is able to coast for the first round against Pyfer, who's clearly going for the kill, and starts finding his range, in the second round he starts finding his range, his jab, he starts, hitting his little leg kicks, his fucking boring ass leg kicks, nice body shots, a good 1-2. That nice jab 1-2 that he was able to hit Pereira with a lot. He's got a lot of options against a guy like Pyfer who doesn't really move his head a lot, who's not used to being on the back foot. I could see ADESANYA just pushing the pace on him as the fight goes on and on and on. I am not too concerned with ADESANYA in this fight. I'm fairly confident that ADESANYA could pull off a decision here. I think he's obviously due for a win, and I think a guy like Pyfer is not good enough to beat ADESANYA. I rate Pyfer's ability to finish fighters very highly, but finishing ADESANYA is not as easy as people are making it seem, and I think ADESANYA is going to piece him up, find his range, avoid the power, and decision Pyfer dominantly. And everybody after the fight's gonna be like, yo, ADESANYA's back, man, ADESANYA's back. They'll start talking about Strickland rematches, all that. Should be a fun fight. Maybe it'll be boring, in classic ADESANYA fashion, but I think it'll be kind of fun to watch ADESANYA finally get back into the swing of things, as much as I hate the fucker. Yeah, great card. I'm hoping I get all these picks right. There's a lot of even fights on this card. Should be really fun matchups, really close fights, some fight of the year contenders, hopefully. We've had a lot of those recently. Yeah, great card. Thank you guys for watching. If you think otherwise on some of my picks, let me know in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Shin.